the first one that we are doing simultaneously from Ferroviário in Lisbon, and from here, easy at Salina in your port. When I see a full house here, in Lisbon, we also have full house, so I'm very happy. I'm António Dias Martins, the Executive Director of Startup Portugal, and I welcome you all to this first edition simultaneously of our Above and Beyond Hangout. Well, I'd like to thank Easy at Salina for hosting us here at Oporto at this amazing and inspiring place. Also, this simultaneously edition between Porto and Lisbon is possible because of the partnership that Startup Portugal established with UPTEC and Câmara Municipal do Porto, the Porto municipality. So I'd like to call to the stage Maria Oliveira from UPTEC, and please, round of applause. And Rui Monteiro from Câmara do Porto to share with us some words at this welcome.
Okay, so hi everybody, my name is Maria Oliveira, Executive Director of UPTEC, and it's a pleasure to welcome here, as António said, to the first edition taking place at the same time at Porto and Lisbon. And we are very excited to work alongside Startup Portugal as well as Municipality of Porto to bring this into reality. And at UPTEC, for those that don't know us, we are the Science and Technology Park of University of Porto. And really what we do is try to foster the creation and the growth of startups. And that being said, startups that are technology-based, innovative, knowledge-intensive. And this is because we really believe that innovation and entrepreneurship are the key driver for economic development and the creation of jobs. So just for you to have an idea, taking into account our impact study that we developed in 2019, and just for the year of 2019, the community of UPTEC was responsible for the creation of 6,500 jobs, direct and indirect. And this is no small amount. So really, it's a pleasure for us to be working with Porto Municipality, but as well with other stakeholders to grow this startup scene in Porto. And of course, going global is part of the process. So I don't want to take any more of your time. I just want to wish you a fruitful event and that you have a lot of opportunities to gather new insights. We're going to have 3 startups of UPTEC presenting. So thank you for being here, and that you have as well networking opportunities. So welcome.
Hi, my name is Rui Monteiro. I'm here on behalf of Porto City Council and the Unit of Entrepreneurship. I would like to welcome Startup and then Hangout for the first time here in the city of Porto, and also the collaboration with UPTEC. And thank you also to Salina for hosting this event. What is the role of Porto City Council and the Unit of Entrepreneurship in this event? So very recently, Porto has made a strong bet on helping fostering the entrepreneur ecosystem of the city. So this is the first of many things that we have planned in order to support everyone that is in the city and wants to do business. And the Porto City Council, by doing this, by being here and supporting this event, aims to help everyone that is in the city to achieve their dreams. So our goal is to leverage, support, and to give stage to everyone that wants to make the difference in the city, with the city talent and with the city partners. So I hope this is the first of many events that will be hosting and supporting. So please feel free also to contact Porto City Council if you want to receive more information about what is our strategy to foster the ecosystem of the city. And once again, thank you for your presence, and enjoy the session.
Okay, so we have a lot of things to share with you today. We are going to have 3 startups pitching from UPTEC. But first, let me tell you a little bit about Porto, because Porto is a vibrant city for startups and for entrepreneurs. Do you know that Porto has circa 25% of all Portuguese startups based here? More than 8,000 jobs creating here from startups. We have exciting startups from Oporto to share with you, and that you know maybe already, and that are doing a brilliant job, like SmartX AI, like InfraSpeak, like Probably, like Scrambler, Dream Shaper. In another level, we have Farfetch, also a very well-known name, unicorn from talent from Oporto also. And recently, Anchorage also opened offices here at Oporto. So it's really the right place to be. Also the region, the whole North region, so including Braga, Aveiro, with a lot of connection with the universities and with technological hubs. It's a really promising area of the country. And each time that we contact with foreigners, with investors from abroad, they are not only looking for the capital and for Lisbon, they are looking for the hidden talent and the growing talent outside the capital. And we, Startup Portugal, also want to go with them and also want to be present outside the capital. So decentralization is a part of our strategy. And so I'm very happy to be here. Did you know that Oporto has the second most entrepreneurial university of the country in the Startup Portugal ranking of entrepreneurial universities? Universidade do Porto, Porto University, occupies the second place in the whole country. This means that in the ranking of founders coming from Portuguese universities, University of Porto is the one that put it outside the second largest number of founders in Portuguese startups. So this is really something, this is really significant. And when comparing with big universities—
Recording in progress.
Okay, so we are being recorded. Big universities like Universidade Nova and Católica that occupied respectively the first and the third position. University of Porto comes in a very interesting second place in the whole country. Also, Porto was recently distinguished with the first place on the FT ranking of European cities and regions of the future in the category FDI Strategy Large Cities. This means what? This means that there are active public policies at the municipality level that are encouraging foreign direct investment into Oporto. And this is being recognized all over Europe. This is a ranking that analyzes 90 cities all over Europe. And Porto has become the first in the ranking. This was shared, this was public 2 weeks ago. So it's very interesting, and it's a really vibrant city and a vibrant region to be and to start your own business and to scale your own business. Well, today we have, besides celebrating the first simultaneously edition from Oporto and Lisbon with our Hangouts, we are also celebrating the call for our program of business abroad. These are missions that Startup Portugal annually puts in place in order to take Portuguese startups abroad and to meet foreign stakeholders, foreign partners, and new markets. We are going to launch today the call for taking Portuguese startups. Portuguese startups means that are companies that should have a Portuguese fiscal number. So they can be founded by foreigners, they can be founded by anybody, as long as they have a Portuguese fiscal number. And we take them this year to the following locations: to Madrid, exhibiting at South Summit; to France, Paris, at Viva Tech conference. We are going to take also startups to exhibit there and to make connections there. Also to Web Summit Rio, the first edition of Web Summit in Brazil. So very interesting opportunities for internationalization in South American market. and also to North America with Collision, which is a Web Summit conference happening in Toronto, Canada. So also interesting opportunities to exhibit and to make connections with foreign markets outside Portugal in these locations. These programs will be happening in the first semester of 2023. In the second semester, we'll have additional initiatives, but we'll keep you posted. For now, we are opening calls to these 4 ones that I talked to you about. And I strongly recommend you that if you are a startup founder or you are a startup that wants to scale and considers that these markets are interesting for your internationalization process, then come with us. We have special conditions for you to exhibit and to participate in these important international conferences. And who knows, you can start scaling through this process as other ones done in the past. Last year, we took more than 70 startups in these international missions, and there are some successful stories that they can tell you about. Well, let me first, before introducing the panel, I would like to welcome the 3 startups that are going to pitch today. As usually, we have a first session of pitch from startups, and today all the 3 startups are coming from Porto, namely from UPTEC, and I ask you a round of applause for the first one, who is going to pitch here today, that is called Agit.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation, for the introduction. Thank you for coming to Porto. It's nice to have you. My name is Tiago. I'm one of the co-founders of Agit, and we have developed a technology that tracks physical exercise in real time using the smartphone camera. Our goal is to create a personal fitness assistant for everyone. But first, let me introduce you to John. John is a guy that likes to work out from home. In this picture, you see him doing a lunge, a body weight exercise, a very popular body weight exercise. If you didn't know anything about exercise, you might have thought that he was praying. Well, he's not praying, but he should be praying, because it's really hard to get the right motivation and skill to exercise. Current solutions like YouTube videos or fitness apps, they tell you what to do, but they don't actually know if you do. They don't know how you do the workout they propose. So that's what we propose to fix. We designed the solution, a mobile app using our own technology based on artificial intelligence to track, count repetitions automatically, send postural correction tips, basically assess the whole workout session. We recognize physical activity through movement with our own custom data set. We train our own AI models. In the end, you can share your videos and be the best at your social network. The benefits, you can train at home and not being alone. So we are interacting with your workouts, and you can join an authentic fitness community, just like Strava. Every activity is a real activity. We are building this right now, not only because the fitness industry is in fast change, becoming more convenient and more social, but also because the kind of solutions that we are building today, the AI models that we are using, were not possible to run in your smartphone 5 years ago. So the AI hardware is becoming more better and better every day. And also the app market size, it's always nice to say, but it's the truth. It's growing year over year. We are also growing. We achieved over 50,000 workouts completed. We have a good retention rate compared to other workout apps. Yeah, and that's basically it for now. We hope to scale this up in the next few months. Right now, we are working towards our vision. I said we want to become a personal fitness assistant for everyone. And by everyone, I not only mean the end user, the guy that works out, but also the coach, the fitness instructor, the physical education teacher, the conditioning coach, and the content creator. We can provide added value to them so they can have a stronger community. They can generate new revenue streams, and basically add more value. We are using coaches and the viral marketing to grow. And we are a team of 2 co-founders ready to rock the fitness industry. We are pre-seed funded. And that's it. Thank you very much. Não há perguntas, pois não?
Thank you, Tiago. And I call now Wise Shape.
So hi, I'm Tatiana, and I'd like to thank to UPTEC and Startup Portugal for inviting us to present our project. So at Wise Shape, we design and manufacture concrete wine tanks, always with this aim, blending tradition with innovation. Our production facilities are located in Coimbra, Portugal. Here our goal is always to reinvent a very ancient way of making wine, but also adding innovation, technology, and design. So wine has been produced for 1,000 years. So the earliest evidence of wine is in the region of in the Caucasus region in today's Romania and Italy and this stuff. So because all of this, winemaking is intrinsically connected to a more passionate and romantic, I can say, a romantic approach. So in terms of innovation, what we did here was to simulate very different scenarios. As we know, the fermentation is a process where yeasts consume sugar from the grapes and convert it into ethanol and carbon dioxide, and releasing heat in this process. Because of this, for example, here we can actually see the temperature gradient within the wine during the fermentation process. And for example, the blue shade indicates lower values, and due to the cooling piping system we have inside the concrete walls. So here we were supposed to have a few videos playing, not today. Something happened, but here basically we ran a few simulations considering many different variables and different scenarios, and we use a CFD software, which is computer fluid dynamics software, to better understand all the flow and the fluid movement. So just a few nowadays, today basically we have one model, Wise Shape, in 2 sizes, 37 hectoliters and 10 hectoliters, and we will release a new model at the end of this year. I can tease a little. It will be a Wise Amphora. So the management is set by 3 women, all engineers, myself, Carla, and Katerina, who happens to be here, this amazing human being that joined us later on. And the production belongs to Hugo, Antonio, and Carlos. We have a few clients across the country already, from Douro, Vinho Verde, down Açores, Trás-os-Montes. Just to point out some facts and figures. So the original idea popped up basically from my studies, my PhD studies. In 2018, WhiteShape was founded. And right now we are having a partnership with Inductiva Research Labs, where we use AI simulation to really understand the flow and the fermentation process. And as I said before, Wise Emperor will be launched, we hope this year, and we expect to have an international expansion also this year. We are fortunate to have been really, to have our work be recognized by a few important institutions, such as Ordem dos Engenheiros, Instituto Pedro Nunes, Revista de Vinhos, and Portuguese Women in Tech. Thank you.
Anna, and now I call to the stage Qubit.
Hello, guys. Okay, hello, guys. So I'm here to present Ticketworld, but today we have a surprise. I'm going to the stage, Sandra Esteves, our head of marketing, to the presentation for Ticketworld.
Hello, I'm the surprise. Hello, everyone. And to finish this pitch session, I'm excited to introduce you to Ticketworld, our decentralized ticketing platform that is built on blockchain. Our platform is designed to create a more engaging experience for all event goers, as we are, and to return the freedom to the event creators. The events industry is right now plagued with many problems, from the lack of trust and transparency, lack of security, fraud, and also lack of control over the data and sales by the event creators. And Ticketworld can solve all of these problems by creating a platform that gives event creators full control of their events while creating a more enriched and safe experience for everyone that wants to buy tickets. The platform is built on three key verticals: the blockchain technology, gamification, and innovation. By using blockchain technology, we can ensure transparency and security in all the operations. By using gamification tools, we can create a more engaging experience for everyone that attends to the event. And with our marketplace, that I will explain in a bit, we can create a fair and secure secondary market. So we offer four main products: our marketplace, the store, the in-event consumables, and the collectibles. The store is basically where event organizers can sell the tickets for their events. They can create exclusive merchandising or digital content, and from which they can receive real-time insights and data on their events. We also allow the creation of carbon neutral assets, because for us, environment comes first. The marketplace allows people to resell their tickets to other potential interested buyers, and we create a platform that is safe and fair for them to do so. And using our blockchain ticket verification system, we ensure that only valid tickets can be resold, which eliminates scalping and fraud, and also creates a new revenue stream for the event organizers. The marketplace is also the place where we can buy tickets that are already sold out or that are not available in through other channels. And all of these in a very easy to use interface that also gives us real-time information on ticket availability. The collectibles are unique and valuable assets that we can buy before or during the event as a memento of the experience, and they can be used to unlock experiences, rewards, and exclusive content, and they add up to the overall gamified experience. We will be available in both platforms, web and mobile. And thank you so much for taking the time to learn about Ticket World. We really believe that our platform is the solution to solve many of the problems that are plaguing right now the events industry. And we are really excited to continue to develop and grow the platform and to work with you to create unforgettable events. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, internationalization. I think, well, we cannot argue enough the importance of internationalization, mainly to Portuguese startups. It's not a question, it's mandatory. For Portuguese startups, if they want to scale, if they want to grow, they have to born thinking in internationalization. You don't have any other choices. And I think we as an ecosystem have to support them in that path and in that process. And we have different roles. We have here incubators. We have here at this Hangout universities. We have investors. We have public entities, and we have independent entities like Startup Portugal that are well related with public and with the government in order to make it easier for Portuguese startups to scale. If one of the responsibilities of Startup Portugal is to create conditions for startups to start and to scale in Portugal, and let me remember you that we recently put out 2 important legislative measures that are currently being voted in the parliament that will be really game-changing to Portuguese entrepreneurial scene. I'm talking about the legal definition of startup in Portugal, which will allow public policies to be directed to startups in the future with much more simplicity. And a second one is a new fiscal regime for stock options. These are, let's say, national level measures of public policies that we are putting in place together with the government, or let me say it in a better way, we are helping the government putting in place these types of measures in order to make it easier in Portugal for startups to start their way and to scale. But international, to go abroad, to step outside the country, how should we do that? Well, there are different approaches. I think we have to learn with some good examples, foreign examples, and I would like to quote the example, refer the example of Israel, where the local startups are incentivized, are motivated to go abroad, and they don't care if the founders leave the country and develop their businesses abroad, and they incentive the businessmen and women to do that, having the perspective that in the future that will do well for their country. I think this is a good perspective. Nowadays, it's impossible to make youngsters and young entrepreneurs to stay in the country and to make them stay in the country for administrative reasons. That doesn't exist anymore. So we have to create conditions to the country to be attractive to locals and to foreigners to come and develop their businesses here. But also we have to create conditions for the Portuguese founders and the Portuguese entrepreneurs to go and look their markets elsewhere, because if they want to grow their business, they have to look elsewhere. And it's a natural process. And we have to make also conditions to that process to happen in the most easier way. Well, to discuss this with us and all the challenges, the success and mistakes and failure stories that also make us learn, I'm happy to welcome to this stage for a debate from Porto, from here, Mafalda Rica, founder and CEO of Explorer. Thank you, Mafalda. guest lecturer and director of the Open Executive Programs in the area of internationalization at Porto Business School. Thank you, Pedro. And streaming from Lisbon, we'll have Pedro Silveira, key account manager and responsible for the startup ecosystem at AICEP, Portugal Global, a public Portuguese agency dedicated to internationalization and to Portuguese companies that go abroad. And from Lisbon, also Ricardo Lima, head of startup and investors at Web Summit. So, thank you very much to all of you. There we go. We can see them in Lisbon. Thank you very much to all of you. And this conversation will be moderated by André Fort. Welcome, André. Very, very happy to see you here.
Thank you, Antonio.
André is head of business development for the arts at UPTech.
Thank you. I guess I need the microphone. Can you hear me? No? Can you hear me now? Yeah, I can hear myself. Well, I should start by saying that I'm extremely happy to finally have one of these events here in Porto. It's really exciting. And I've been a Porto person for 12 years now. So yeah, this to me, I think it's huge that Startup Portugal started to do this, and I hope it continues for a longer time. And yeah, without further ado, I think we should start the conversation. I'm suggesting, and I hope you guys agree with this, I will start with you, Mafalda, here in Porto, and I will close with you, Pedro, from Porto.
Okay.
This way, the whole Porto narrative stays really nice and round. So, Mafalda, I think the first question is, how did Explorer came to be? And yeah, how did the idea come up, and how did you create the company?
Yeah, well, first of all, Explorer is a spin-off from another tech company that is called Gemma. And in Gemma, we used to have several requests from our clients for improving the engagement between the venues, the museums, the cities, and their visitors. And so we started to wondering why not to develop a product where we could really bet on technologies such as AR, VR, and gamification in order to improve this formula. And then we just spin off this. So Gemma just challenged me to spin off this company and to found Explorer, and this is all what Explorer is all about.
And you went international. Sorry, once again. You went international right away, right?
Yes.
What tools did you use to do it? I will talk about investment later on, so let's save that part for afterwards. What were there programs that you used to do it? Was it just based on being a spin-off? Did you add some way done? Were you further ahead on that? Tell us a little bit about your internationalization process.
I would say that I used everything that I could, which means that I used personal connections, events, programs, agents, resellers, partners, tools and platforms such as, I don't know, Apollo, Meetalford, that are really cool for improving your direct marketing. And I started from there, from shooting everywhere and starting to plant some seeds around, and things start happening. I mean, we are already selling to UK, to Spain, to Italy, and that was the result of being all the time connected to these tools and to people, which is truly important, to be always there connecting with people all the time. Not, for example, we started to a strategy of starting to find local partners, and that those local partners could be resellers or agents. And we didn't only start to get partners, and that's all. So I was on a weekly basis doing calls. We call it virtual coffees with these guys, just starting to get a relation and starting to being really close to them in order to they could engage with us and start to selling our products abroad. So it was all about building these connections and using these tools that nowadays are amazing. These platforms that help us to connect and that help us to being there, connecting to the old world. So
Okay, and I think I'm obligated to ask you, you've benefited from some started Portugal programs, am I
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I think they're pretty interesting and useful too. So in our case, we use the startup programs for going to South Summits, also to go to Web Summits, and they are really, really important. I mean, we at Explorer are all the time accepting every kind of challenge that is related to promoting. So everything that is email that you want to go to this event, or do you want to go to speak, or do you want to go to meet this person, we go. So we just go, and we go in person. It's important. It's important, and being in those programs was also important too, to build these connections, to start to build a network in this. In the case of South Summit, it was in Madrid, and in the case of Web Summits, it was worldwide. So it's truly, truly important.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
I should excuse myself for keeping the microphone on my back, but it's to avoid feedback. I know it looks a little bit weird, but it's important. Pedro, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I will start with you in Lisbon, if that's okay.
Sure, sure.
So talking a little bit about ICEP, you guys have been working for a while now, but I noticed that there has been a newfound look into the startup ecosystem. So can you tell us a little bit about what ICEP does? And secondly, how important is the startup ecosystem now for what you guys have been doing?
Okay, firstly, let me thank Startup Portugal for inviting me to this talk. It's really important and good for us to explain what ICEP is and what we do for the companies. Well, ICEP, very briefly, is part of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and we have two main objectives. The first one is to promote foreign direct investment to Portugal, typically from big companies and big projects. And the second one, that occupies us perhaps 80% of our time, is to support the Portuguese companies going abroad, to support them in the internationalization strategies. We have more than 50 delegations throughout the world, and our delegates, they do two things. They promote investment to Portugal, and they support our companies doing more business in those markets or even investing in those markets. I have to say that we've been experiencing in the last years a big interest by startups to be supported by us because we have a very good network out of Portugal that is very beneficial to those companies. But I have to admit that some years ago, typically ICEP didn't follow or supported startups. We started understanding that the ecosystem of Portuguese startups was beginning to be very dynamic, so we had to adapt. We started a small team of key account managers that follows startups in particular. I'm responsible for the ecosystem of startups at ICEP. And well, the key account managers, they work on a daily basis with the companies so that they can understand the company, what the company does, and mainly what the company, in which stage the company is in the internationalization strategy. This is really important for us to understand. The support that we give to companies is totally custom-made. It's really it depends on the company, the sector, and on many other things. But we follow nowadays more than 18,000 companies, from startups, small and medium, and big companies. And I should say that our main asset, perhaps, is the delegations that support them on the ground in those markets. The support is really very personalized, and it's really case by case.
All the questions that I have to ask you, but I'll ask something else, which is, do you find that there are markets who are keener to onboard Portuguese companies? Are there any specific culture that's more okay in your experience with what's been happening in our ecosystem?
Well, I have to say that the technological startups, they are always very keen on searching for the more mature markets. If I had to choose 3 or 4, I would say the United States, Germany, France, and the United Kingdom. So that's a good sign. It's a sign that our technological startups, they want to be competitive in the first league, so to speak. So it's a good sign that they want to go to those markets that typically are very difficult to enter.
Yeah, they're not afraid of the big markets. That's amazing. And well, thank you for sharing that. It's also really inspiring. Ricardo, I know that you work for Web Summit, but you also have an interesting story with Web Summit. Your first experience with Web Summit was as a founder, if I'm not mistaken, or not as a founder maybe, but you participated on the other side, right?
Yeah, I wanted to look at you while I'm talking to you, but I see myself.
Oh, okay.
This is kind of like Zoom, so I'm gonna look at.
Yeah, you look like you were surprised when I said you were
because I don't want to look and see my face. So sorry, but I'm looking at you in my brain.
Thank you.
So, which is weird. So yeah, my first experience with Web Summit was back in 2016 when Web Summit moved from Dublin to Lisbon. And I had an interesting experience because I was responsible for marketing for a startup that was actually selected by Startup Portugal to come on the road to Web Summit, and at the same time I was also a volunteer in the event. Fun fact, my boss is back there, he doesn't know this, but I was a volunteer in the investors team, and I was responsible, so at the event, for those of you that haven't been there, we have like different things there. A lot of things are happening at the same time, but one of those things, it's called Investor Lounge, where investors are the only ones that can go there and they can mingle with one another and have some drinks and have fun. And obviously, from the startup perspective, they want to get to the Investors Lounge because they want to talk to investors. And I was lucky enough to be put in the door of the Investors Lounge. So then the co-founder of my startup came to the Investors Lounge and he wanted to get inside, and I said, please, by all means. So he ended up spending most of the conference mingling with investors. And then I was lucky enough to be, I'd say, headhunted. And then Web Summit made the terrible mistake of hiring me. And
I think it's a good mistake. This way you don't invite people to lounges anymore, you know?
Yeah, now I'm the one dealing with that, so yeah.
Yes, so, well, it was a good way to deal with the problem. But my question was related to what you did and what you are currently doing, which is interesting because you have this experience and I think you are in a good position to answer me, which is how important, in your opinion, is to participate in these events? And I ask you to maybe not answer as Ricardo from Web Summit, but Ricardo who participated in the Web Summit and that had this experience, you know. For internationalization, how important is this for a startup? These events, do they play a big role in your opinion?
They do. And obviously, I'm going to try to take off my hat of Ricardo from Web Summit and think as Ricardo that work in a startup, and also talk a little from the perspective of in Web Summit, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is help startups, right? So startups sit at the core center of our event. The event started 10 years ago because there was no event for startup founders in Dublin. That's why it was created, 300 people the first event, 70,000 people 10 years later. But startups sit at the forefront of what we're trying to do, which is create meaningful connections. And in essence, essentially what a startup event like Web Summit is just a collection of opportunities. So you are able to be in the same room and in the same space with people that potentially would take a lot of effort to get in touch with, a lot of time, a lot of maybe money, which are resources that startups usually don't have in abundance, right? As a startup founder, you need to be very, very cautious in terms of the time that you're spending, the money that you're spending, the energy that you're spending. So if you go to an event like Web Summit, in essence, as my father was saying, you get the opportunity to meet the world for 3 or 4 days. You get to meet potential customers, you get to meet potential partners, you get to meet potential investors. So all of that can obviously help accelerate the internationalization process of a startup, especially when that startup is small-ish, because again, they have very limited resources. So I think that an event like Web Summit or Web Summit Rio or Collision are incredible opportunities for any startup that is looking to expand into new markets.
So you had a terrible time taking off the hat, right?
Yeah, I did. I didn't try to sell tickets though. So.
Well, can you share us a couple of good examples really quick, because we really need to move on, but a couple of examples that are maybe inspiring for other founders of companies that went through Web Summit and ended up raising money or expanding to other countries?
Yeah, I have a couple of examples, but it's actually very difficult for us to get those examples, because in most cases, again, we're dealing with, so last Web Summit we had 2,749 startups or so. So it's really, really hard for us to keep track on the progress of every single startup. So usually what happens, curiously enough, is that, for instance, when I was chatting to and forgive me if I got his name wrong, Nuno from Sound Particles, they're developing a software for audio productions for movies, to be applied in movies. And obviously they wanted to expand into the US. So I sent him a message in LinkedIn, because I wanted him to do something at Web Summit, and he actually told me, oh yeah, obviously that I will go, because we met the lead investor to our round, and then we also met the lead partner that is now helping us expand into the US. So that's just one example. We have the other example of Dream Shaper, which is a Portuguese startup that met their lead investor in Web Summit 2017, and then they followed up, and they closed the round in 2019. That was also fun, because we were working with the Startup Portugal team to make the announcement at Web Summit. Though that investment helped them expand into Brazil, which was their goal. Then we also have the early case of Define Crowd, Danielle, or Define AI, who met their lead investor at one of the dinners that we usually organize throughout Web Summit. So at the end of the day, again, Web Summit is just a collection of opportunities for people to establish connections that usually help them achieve whatever it is that they want to achieve. So in this case, internationalization. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you with one more startup than what I requested, but thank you.
Sorry.
No, that was perfect. Actually, the last one is Dream Shaper. They are incubated at UPTech, so that was a perfect one. So thank you for adding that.
As if we didn't plan this.
No, perfect. Now I'm moving back to Portugal. I'll get back to you guys. Pedro, well, thank you for coming as well. So about what Porto Business School has been doing, I'm curious, what do you think is the role that business schools such as PBS can play in preparing entrepreneurs for internationalization? That's what you're doing there, so I'm curious to have. Then I'll follow up with another question that I believe should open up for the rest of, that's why I wanted to close with you, for the rest of the panelists.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think I can use the last words from Ricardo, that is, Web Summit, it's a place where startups can find opportunities. And Mafalda also mentioned a little about this. That is, she's visiting events, she's doing contacts, etc. And this is normal in the first phases of startups and their acceleration process, if we want. That is, it's through opportunities. But this is not sustainable in the long run. So at some point, you have to make the decisions based on more information, more data, and using tools and frameworks. Okay, so that's what we do at PBS, is give the entrepreneurs, the founders, the C-level people, or just someone with some ideas, to have some tools and knowledge, frameworks that can help them to decide what should the priority markets be, what should my mode of entry be. Am I prepared to go now for this internationalization process? Or maybe I'm not ready to go to China and I'm ready to go to the United States. Okay, so it's basically to give these tools to entrepreneurs, because you have to start like this. You usually start like this. And Ricardo also mentioned it's a cheap way of doing contacts and trying to get business. But at some point, you cannot rely only on that. Okay, so we have, for example, a framework for market selection. So you use some indicators that make sense to your business. For example, Wise Shape that was here. Okay, it's a product for winemakers. In principle, we know the markets that they should target. Okay, but well, it should be Australia, Chile, United States, or France and Spain. You know, they have to make that decision at some point. If not, they will be shooting in all directions, spending a lot of money and not getting the results they want. Okay, so this is one example of some things we do. Then it's the mode of entry. Shall we go directly to the customers? You know, no matter it's B2B, or B2C or B2B, and actually the other pitch we have here about the ticket solution, they have both. They can do it B2C or D2C, but they also have the event organizers. Okay, so how should I target those event organizers? Go directly and you know, try to make business, or should I get a partner in a country that is big that should then target those clients? So you know, it's this if you want, this ideas that we want the startups to understand, to you know, start make decisions in a more proactive and less reactive way, and more systematic and less opportunistic. This is just, you know, short examples of
Yeah. No, I think it's really valuable. But there's something that from what you just said that I picked up on, which is knowledge.
Yeah.
When I start Googling a little bit about you, I came upon this article where you say knowledge is power, France is bacon, you know, and no, I found really interesting,
Okay.
but it's not only about key indicators about a market, but maybe culture as a big part to play on this. Why did you came up with this little anecdote to explain this? And do you believe that culture is something that really plays a big part in an expansion process?
Okay, just a small note on my background. I lived in Japan, so I was very young at the time. So I was exposed to a very different culture. So I was aware of the importance of dealing and you know, be prepared for different cultures. But I think also Mafalda said something very important for this that I can use as an example for this. You know, Mafalda was talking about creating some relationships. You know, for her, you know, it's important. So I need to create relationships with potential clients. And why is she saying this? You know, because most of the cultures in the world, trust comes from relationship. Okay, you have a few examples where trust comes from, you know, what you deliver. Germany, the Netherlands, but you know, Latin countries, even China, Japan. It's the relationship that matters. So if you don't understand this, you will, you know, you find the opportunities in the market. The size of the market is fantastic. All the external variables are fantastic. You have the capacity to go, but you know, you do it without creating a relationship. If you don't create a relationship, they don't trust you. If they don't trust you, they don't buy from you. They don't do business with you. So yeah, culture is very important. There's a lot more things around all this. But I would say that, you know, it's like, it's fantastic to bring, you know, digital to the business world, but it's, you know, even more fantastic to take this human touch to the digital world. And I don't believe you cannot. I don't believe you can do it without this human touch. And for you to, you know, to give the human touch, you have to understand the other cultures. You have to understand the way they do business, how they trust with you, how to motivate, you know, your teams, and a lot more stuff, you know, so that in the end you can get financial results, profits, because it's what we are looking for, all of us.
Okay, thank you. And this is why I wanted to close with you this first round, because it allows me to do a nice segue for the next part, which is culture, where I think it can be translated to two variables here. One is culture, how you hire your team, how you create your team, and the culture that you create inside, and how that culture translates to your business. So I'll begin with this last one, which is, and it's something that we notice at UPTech every day. Most of the companies that we work with, most of them are doing exports, you know, so I'm saying this out of my head, from the top of my head, so I hope I'm not missing it. But I would say 55% of the turnover made by companies at UPTech it's in exports, which is really good. And this I think it translates to the rest of the ecosystem, whereas most companies, startups that begin in Portugal have this going international, going abroad from scratch, you know? So how important is, in your opinion, and Mafalda, if you want to start as a founder, I think it's a nice one. How important is when you start thinking international from day one? If you want to go abroad, this is something that you need to have as a priority. Does this make sense?
You mean the culture?
Yeah, in your company, when you create your business model, the way you then, you create your team and you start sharing with them your goals. Going abroad is something that should be in day one in the culture of the company.
I would say that going abroad might be in the day two. Day one is for building that culture and I would say for getting people to really absorb everything from what you want, from your vision, from your values, mainly from your vision and values. And then on day two, you might start to go abroad, and then your team will represent you as exactly how you want to, and will go with you in the same path and in the same way. So I think that it's really important to go into day two, first coming from the culture. But of course, that you need to measure if you are already prepared for that. I mean, it's important to go fast and as fast as you can, but being aware that you need to be ready for that in terms of the product, in terms of your relations, and that happened with us, for example. In the beginning of Explorer, we start every I don't know if it happened with all the startups, but I imagine that it happens. But we started to receive so many emails and challenges asking us for coming to this market or to that market, and so it's really tempting to go on the first day. And in our case, for example, we started to be approached from US market, which is as Pedro said, which is quite interesting, important, and it's really tempting. But we didn't go. I mean, we started to focus on Europe, and then we decided that when we were mature with our product, then we can scale to US, because then we will control first something that we can control here closer to us, and then we go to US. And that happened on the beginning of this year. So we rejected the temptation to go to US, and then in the beginning of this year, we closed a deal with a US reseller that is now starting to resell our product there. So we need to really be aware of our ability and our maturation to go.
I will ask a question, but I will ask other people now so everybody can pitch in. But should you know from day one that you want to go abroad, and this is something that you have on your roadmap from scratch, or is this something that you consider afterwards, after you do Portugal, you know? That's a slightly different question, but I think it can render some different results as well. So maybe somebody from Lisbon can pitch in. Pedro or Ricardo, you guys want to weigh in on this?
I can start. Yeah. From our experience at ICEP, regarding startups and mostly technology startups, I think usually it happens that the company thinks about internationalization from day one. So the Portuguese market is small, and I believe that the entrepreneurship in Portugal are very focused not only in the Portuguese market, perhaps as a test bed for the product, but they usually want to go abroad. And that is why we started making an effort to gather as many startups to our portfolio as possible, because we understood that when these small companies with 2 or 3 persons started, they already started international. So I believe they should think, well, it happens. It's the majority of the companies, they think about internationalization from scratch.
Thank you, Pedro. Ricardo, do you want to weigh in on this, or should we move to Pedro Vieira?
If your question is if they need to do it, I don't know if they need to do it. I think it has to do with the goals of the business when it's created. But I think that ultimately, as Pedro was saying, the Portuguese market is so small that if you have a startup and if you have the ambition to scale, you have to look abroad to grow, and usually you can look at markets that are relatively similar. Say, from a language perspective, you can look at Brazil, or you can look at Palops. You can look at Europe if your product or your company is not in a space that is very regulated. So I think it has to do with the goal of the business. So I don't know if they have to, but usually in Portugal, it happens because, again, we are a very small country.
Thank you, Pedro.
We could stay here now for
Forever, yeah, I know this is an interesting question.
But,
So, may I rephrase it?
if you want, yeah.
Yeah. So, what tools do you believe that a company should keep in mind when, from scratch, that would benefit them later on to go abroad?
Okay. And using, the topic that we were discussing here is diversity. Okay. Maybe companies should start thinking about, thinking global from day zero, not day one. Meaning, from ideation. If you can have different people from different cultures discussing that with you, I'm sure that we will be much better prepared for then, go abroad and be successful in the international markets. But, all that diversity should be multicultural, should be from ideation to product design, product launch, etc. So definitely diversity. Then about, the size of the market. Portugal is 10 million people. It's a small neighborhood in Beijing. And I was talking to Antonio before we started, and in my entrepreneurial life, I had a project with Invest São Paulo, that is, the equivalent of ICEP, but for the state of São Paulo, with 40 million people. And Brazil can afford to have an unicorn, just selling within Brazil. But the government of São Paulo decided that, it cannot be like that. Because I think everybody knows if the companies are exposed to the international markets, they can be more innovative, they will be more competitive, they will definitely get better results. So they decided to have, this program to assist Brazilian startups to in a scale-up phase to approach European markets. So, even a country the size of a continent knows that, we have to do something about having startups going global.
Thank you. I would love to keep on this conversation, but people from Startup Portugal already start signaling me the time is running up. So I think it's time for our panelists are open for questions. So if anybody has any questions that wants to ask us, maybe them. No? In Lisbon, how's it going? Do we have questions there?
So many.
So I should. Oh, there's a question.
I have a question, Jeff.
It's a huge difference in culture for sure. I am from Ecuador, and I sell cosmetics there, and I have come here, which I actually realized how different is the culture. I live in South Korea, United States, and even before I came, I started to sell in Europe. I export to United States, without even looking at the people, I didn't even know them. And here it has become way more, especially in Portugal, at least in my case, way more harder, to connect with people. I have found a very, very traditional market, but extreme traditional, compared even with South America. In my example, of course, not in every example for sure, but my question is how you can come to this market in the cosmetic world, because there is also a huge opportunity here, because Portugal in cosmetics is behind Spain, that is a country that is just right next to, behind Colombia, behind Ecuador, and you still have these products that are very the 90s, and people are still trying to buy these products, and I have even talked with people from Portuguese people who they represent companies, for Australian companies for for the hair. And they have told me, Juan, like I'm the representative to Europe and Portuguese, and I have not yet come to the Portuguese market. Like I have sold in Denmark, in other countries that they have opened to me before. So it's just a question how to do it, because of course, if I will know it, I will already made it. But I think it's very important, but at the same time, of course, there is a big opportunity because it's behind. So the new products, it has to be open, but it's a slower process. I don't know, because, sorry, I forgot your name, but you live in Japan. And so you understand how different it is when you go abroad. Thank you.
Yeah, can I reply? Okay, Juan, right? Okay. First of all, congratulations. You came here. It's the first step, you know, so you are facing the difficulties, you know, the obstacles, and you will find how to overcome them. I don't know your products in detail, so I would be lying if I would give you the solution, or if I had them, I would propose to be your partner, so, you know, so that we could make money together. But yeah, first of all, you have to understand the market. You lived in South Korea, so you know that, for example, in South Korea and Japan, they use some cosmetics to become whiter and not, you know, like suntanned as here. So, you know, so there's this product adaptation that you have to understand. But then there's the, you know, that thing we were talking about, the relationship, okay? So you are coming from a culture that is also very strong in relationship, maybe more informal than we are, a little, but you need to be with people, you know, you need to talk to them. They need to understand that your product, you know, that there's a product market fit here, you know, that the product, there's a demand for your product in the market. They have to see it, they have to trust that it's a good product, but then it comes the relationship part. So you have to, you know, to be with them, have lunch with them, I don't know, you know, ask them for, you know, do something on a weekend, you know, so that you can know your clients better. Assuming, I don't know, your business model, if you are coming directly, if you are coming together with an importer / distributor. So I would need to know more details so that I could give more, you know, more ideas. But first of all, very important is to be here. So you at least you are doing the diagnostic, you know, it's like, it's the first step. And stay here, try to build the connections. And at some point you will see that, okay, I'm starting, you know, little by little, but I'm starting, and then the things will grow. In Japan, they take much more time than here. You know, they test you a lot. Here, we don't test so much, but we need to trust you.
I can add on one more tip, I would say. I don't know your markets, but it happens with me every day with my markets. I'm targeting, for example, museums, which is a pretty traditional sector. And I'm selling augmented reality and virtual reality to some clients that don't even have a website. Mm-hmm. And so I'm facing exactly those problems here in Portugal. And the way to overcome this sometimes is just building awareness all the time. Like creating webinars about the importance of the technology to improving the engagement with visitor. For example, from my example, building awareness in several kind of events where you can help people to understand the benefits of your cosmetics, and I think that might help. It's like building awareness all the time. I have that job too, like a priest all the time. Educating people, yeah.
Well, I think that we have a question from Lisbon. Am I right?
Hello, everybody. So I guess you all have a lot of experience on startup internationalization, which is great. On your experience on seeing a lot of startups that succeeded, I want to ask the opposite. So as the previous colleague asked, like how to do it, I want to ask what you don't do it. So what in your experience think that has been the cause number one of startup failing when trying to go to other markets? So in other words, what you don't do it when you think to internationalize?
Well, thank you, Fernand. That was Fernand from 351. He's always here, you know. It's one of our best ecosystem builders. I don't know if you directed that question to anyone in specifically, or you can just ask somebody.
No, that was for the panel.
Okay, so maybe Pedro from ICEP, do you want to pick this one up?
Yeah, sure. Well, from our experience, usually things don't go so well when the startup that is trying to reach the foreign markets doesn't have not only an internationalization strategy, but a team. It doesn't have to be a team of 5, but at least someone that is dedicated, if possible, 100% of the day dedicated to internationalization. So many times, well, it happened in the past that some companies, startups, asked us for example, a list of potential customers in a certain market. We produced the list, we send it to them, and then they started reaching those potential customers, and they had so many responses that they weren't prepared for it, and it didn't work. So it's really bad if something like this happens, because the momentum is lost and the opportunity in that market may never come again for that company and that product or service. So in my opinion, one of perhaps of the handicaps of Portuguese startups could be the lack of a team dedicated to internationalization, because the steps are very important to take place, but it's important to be able to respond to something that comes from abroad. So this is my opinion from experience that we have.
Ricardo, do you want to pitch in on this? I mean, so many startups come and go through web summits. You must have some examples to share.
I actually have the example before Web Summit. So when I was working for the startup, they got at the time a seed round that was significant, and this was back in 2016. So we didn't have all the reference points that we now have of Portuguese startups raising multiple millions. So you can have the team, because essentially what the founders did was, okay, we got money. We were a travel tech company. We had the money. We want to expand internationally. So what we can do is hire a bunch of people in the sales department. So they hired, I think, 20 people at once, all from different countries that were living in Portugal. And essentially they created an inside sales team, and we started selling for different markets. But we didn't even know the markets. We didn't have people giving us insights into the markets. So for instance, I was hired in those times, I was hired to do the Spanish market. I didn't even go to Spain. I never worked in the tourism sector in Spain before. They hired me because I spoke Spanish, because I grew up in Spain. But you need to know the market. You need to have, again, the relationships. You need to know the insights. You need to know maybe programs that they have in those markets that can help you expand internationally. And also another thing that is very, very important is what Mafalda was saying. As a startup founder, you were one, so I believe that you get all of these different inputs of opportunities that you can grab. Maybe you can go to the United States, maybe you can go to France, maybe we can go to Brazil. It's really, really important that you choose a market based on what Pedro was saying as well, of data, and the strategy makes sense, and the problem is also a problem in that specific market, and then be very, very focused, because it's really, really easy for you to just be lost in all the opportunities that you can have and try to grab everything, and then you spread thin, and then you fail, but at least you have a story.
Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, there's one.
Yeah, hi everyone. I would like to continue this topic. We keep saying that you need to know the market. Are there any advices or tips you can give us how to get to know your market? Like tools, means that you would be using to get to know it?
For once, I will just say that ICEP in this regard is really interesting, because they have delegates in the country who are learning the market. So that's a good tool to use when you're in Portugal and you founded a company in Portugal. I just spoke on your behalf, Pedro. I hope that's okay.
No problem.
I don't know if anyone wants to pick else on this. Pedro, you want to go?
I can, there's a lot of free information. There's really a lot of stuff for free with good quality. depends a lot on, you know, your sector, your products, and the markets you want to approach. Of course, is more difficult to get, you know, reliable data in some African countries than you get in Europe. But there's a lot of information for free to start with. You know, you can use, depending if it's a product, technology, a service, you know, but maybe we can talk later on. And if I understand better what you do, I can give you even some places where you can get information. But yes, there's a lot of places where you can, you know, at least have the big picture. Another very important source of information is your competitors. You know, they tell you a lot about the markets, what they are doing there, you know, how they are selling in the market directly through partners, etc. I don't know how they were.
I was going to say another thing that is important, complementing what you are saying, because competitors are, of course, the best resource that you might have. But maybe they sometimes might not give you information. And in the beginning, for example, I started to approach UK markets, starting to ask my competitors, as you said, about their products. But I could not present myself as Mafalda from Explorer, and that was a problem. And it's not nice to do that but I did in the beginning. And so after that, I started to wonder why not to have these insights from those who, okay, they are already in my market with my type of clients, but they don't feel they are my competitors. They feel that they might be complementary service or things like that. And so I started to approach partners, local partners and local companies that, for example, in the case of museums, who is working with museums? The ones that are doing scenography, the ones that are selling softwares for having all the artworks in the system, whatever. And so I started to approach these kind of these companies, asking questions, asking insights, and then some of those became my resellers too. And so it might be a good strategy too.
Thank you. And I think we have one last question from Lisbon, if I'm not mistaken. Hello. The good thing about this being the last question is we can ask a lot more questions in the Hangout afterwards. So stick around. But yeah, Lisbon.
All right. Thanks for everybody's important information that we all learned. This question is for everybody, but especially for someone who has sold in the Portuguese market. Since there was talk about how this market is very traditional, do you think startups which are more in the traditional space, like food or wine, like one of the pages today, would do better in Portugal than apps or websites or technology startups?
Okay, this is a free-for-all. Who wants to pick this one up? Unless I'm everyone as well, but I'm excluding myself from the equation. It's a safer space. Ricardo, you want to start?
Of course.
So that's a no. Should I pass it on?
No. I said of course, and I meant it, even though it didn't sound like it. I think that's an interesting question. I think times have changed. First and foremost, I think now more and more people are aware of. Or if we're talking about technological startups, right? So people are now more aware of how important it is, for instance, to have a presence online, how technology can help facilitate processes that you're using in your business, as traditional as you are. So as an example, in the north of the country, in Portugal, there's a big manufacturing industry in terms of like textile, shoes, and what's not. And there's a lot of technological advancements in that region for that specific industry, which would be considered one of the most traditional industries that there is, right? In terms of like how to automate processes in the factories, how to automate processes with the companies themselves. So I think that now, because of all this movement around technology, because of all this movement about startups, it's becoming easier than it was, say, 6, 7, 8 years ago. It doesn't mean that it's easy, because as we've discussed here in terms of the culture, is a lot about relationships, who you know. In Portuguese, we have a word which is cunha, that helps a lot. So if you know someone that can open you a door, that's kind of like, it can be applicable to almost any country. If you know someone, it's much easier for you to connect and sell with your potential customer. But I don't think that right now a startup would have those many challenges opening at least a conversation than it was 4 or 5 years ago. So I think it's a challenge, but it's easier than it was 5 years ago. I hope that answered your question in some.
Can I add something very quick?
Yeah, please do.
That, you know, even if we have this relationship type of doing business, we cannot come up to the conclusion that only more traditional startups can succeed here. Actually, Portugal was known or is known for adoption in technology adoption. So, you know, it depends more on exactly what you are doing, you know, and who you want to target, and not necessarily what sector are you in. I wouldn't conclude that.
Okay, thank you. I think that's it for us. And I'm kind of having a Hero Vision moment here where I'm sending the emission to somewhere else now. So I think now it's Patricia Roque from Startup Portugal who has a message for us. Patricia, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hello. So I'm here. I'm not going to talk a lot. So just in 5 minutes, I hope we're all upstairs networking. But I have 3 final messages for you. So the first one is I want to ask for a big round of applause for Câmara do Porto and Uptech who helped us go to Porto. For the startups that pitched today and our brilliant panelists and Andre who was moderating the talk today. Again, please, thank you. It's never enough. So, as Antonio said, so our business abroad applications are open. So if you want to go to Web Summit Rio and you want to go with us, you must apply until the 19th of March. So stay tuned to our website. The applications are open and you can register from today on. And if you want to go to South Summit, Vivatech in Paris and Collision in Canada, you must apply until the 31st of March, okay? And then last but not least, our Hangouts happen every last Wednesday of the month. So please feel free to join us in the next editions here or in Porto or remotely from wherever in the world you may be. So thank you all and have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Bring it outside.
Outside, yes, please enjoy a network. Yeah.